Hi, Diana. Thank you, George. Okay, we're going to call this meeting to order for real this time. Today is Monday, the 24th of November. The time is 4:37 p.m. We have a tax rate vote scheduled to take place at 5 p.m. And beforehand, starting now, we have a public hearing where residents were able to sign up and speak out on the tax rate issues. We have 6 individuals who have who have signed up to speak out tonight. So we will we'll call them in the order that they're listed here. And each person will be offered 3 minutes to speak. If when we get done with that, there's still time left, we'll offer additional time as the council may see fit in its discretion until 5 o'clock. So our first speaker this evening is Diana Zinel. Diana, welcome. Thank you for your work. If you could please turn your microphone on, please. Thank you very much. You have the floor.
Did that work? Thank you. Thank you very much, President Fenton. I guess I wanted to come tonight. I'm Diana Zinel. I'm President and CEO of the Springfield Regional Chamber and a member of the Springfield Tax Advisory Committee. I just wanted to say thank you for having the Chamber as part of the process and being able to be the voice of the business community during the tax discussion. I just want to mention the Springfield Chamber represents hundreds of local businesses, large businesses, small businesses, nonprofits, you name it. And more importantly, the Chamber represents all the employees of those businesses. So in addition to representing businesses, we literally represent thousands of residents of Springfield and of course some of the surrounding towns as well. So I just want to acknowledge the work of the Tax Advisory Commission, the City Council, the Mayor, the assessors, and the entire financial team in this process. We had really great discussions and I think came to a really fair proposal for this year. So just to wrap up in closing, I just look forward to continuing to work together to build a strong Springfield where all residents and all businesses can thrive and grow. And this should be a great place to live and work and do business and play. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Zinel. Our next speaker is Joseph Bonilla. Mr. Bonilla? Withdrawn. Okay, thank you very much. Somebody took my pen. Here it is. Okay. Next speaker is Michael Lockenmeyer. Okay, thank you very much. Next is Robert Dancy. Mr. Dancy. Robert. Okay. Don't see Robert. Next is Freddie Lopez. I do see Freddie. Hi, Freddie.
How you doing? How you doing, Mike? Okay, so we have this conversation every year when it's time to set the mill rate. Us in the real estate industry, we know this is the mill rate. What is the percentage of money that is being paid per every $1,000 worth of value for the property? So whatever rate we decide on, that in the real estate industry is called the mill rate, the residential rate that we're voting on, that you're voting on. So in setting the mill rate, I do believe that in comparison with other towns and cities, that we are pretty much in line where we need to be. I do see other communities. I like to compare us to Hartford, although that's a capital of Connecticut. But for the same properties that they buy here, their taxes are pretty much double what we pay. They do have different incentives in which they don't charge 100% of value. But in the city of Springfield, taxes are based on marketable value, which means the value that you would receive if you actually sold your house today. So residents are paying based on full marketable value. It didn't always used to be like this, even though it was supposed to always be like this. It wasn't tracked because Maybe at one point the assessors didn't have the tools readily available to them, such as Zillow, Realtor.com. They had all of the public knowledge and everything, but they probably didn't have all the pictures and everything to compare. And of course, they weren't able to go into every property and fully assess what every single property was like. But now with the internet, they're able to do exactly what the real estate industry does in order to find value of the property. So everyone is being taxed at full value. I just, sometimes that might not be clear to everyone. The other thing is, a lot of this discussion when we talk about giving residents relief, a lot of it has to do with the proposed budget, because every time the budget goes up, we cover it with the levy. Because of the way the levy is set up, we were able to add to the levy. The levy includes all taxes for residential, commercial, and personal property taxes, which makes up approximately 29% of the entire budget. MGM money does not go into that 29%. It goes outside of that. So if you want specific tax relief, and I don't mean for the city to gain money, but I mean to lower actual taxes, you would have to put MGM money back into the levy. That's the only way to give anybody else tax relief, actual tax relief. It doesn't mean that the city will make more money, because it will all net to the same amount of money, but it is something that I think we should consider. And a lot of this is also tied to the pension, so there's a lot to manage. But the mill rate is what it is, and that's what we're voting on. But I would urge City Council to really have this discussion during budget time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez. And our last speaker this evening is Jay Latore. Hi, Jay.
Good evening, Mr. President. Juan Latore, 122 Forest Hills Road in Springfield. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on this important issue today. And I want to start by saying my thanks to the City Council for hosting the 2 special tax rate meetings. They were really informative, and a lot of citizens got to learn more about the process, which is particularly complicated. So thank you for that. You know, I'm here to say publicly I support the proposed tax rate for the next fiscal year, and I support the max shift towards 1.75, even though I recognize it places a disproportionate burden on businesses. But given our inflationary period, it's the best that we can do for our residents, and I think it's something that we have to do. And I do support using some free cash to reduce the burden on all taxpayers, and I'm glad that we're going to have enough free cash left over to be able to anticipate or react to unanticipated needs that come up. But Mr. President, we're in a rock and a hard place with this effort, especially when you think about how much unfunded pension liabilities the city of Springfield has. I'm going to be clear. $200 a year plus annual increases in residential property tax rates, it's just not acceptable, and it's just not sustainable. And continuously plugging that gap with free cash every year is not sustainable either. So I'm really here to just talk about a couple key things that every city councilor, every resident, every business has to be thinking about year-round. We've got to think about ways to identify new revenue to reduce the burden on individuals and businesses already in the city, whether that's through new pilot agreements or other options within the city. We've got to be proactive about it. No matter how painful it is to cut services or to find ways to cut, we have got to be engaged in a year-round effort to look at services that we might like but we don't need, or find new ways to do things more efficiently so we can do more with less. It has to be considered no matter how painful it is. And again, I want to emphasize, we come here every year and we have this conversation at the tax rate time, and then we have other conversations when it's time to set the budget. But the only way to try and get this right is to have a continuous year-round, every week approach to looking at this. Because what we're looking at right now, if nothing meaningful changes, is property tax increases on an annual average of $1,000 every 4 years. And that's going to increasingly place a burden on Springfield residents. And I believe it's going to result in less people actually owning their homes and more investors owning homes in the city of Homes. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Latore. And that'll conclude our speak out. For those who have signed up, thank you. We do have another 13 minutes here, and I see that Jessica had previously prepared a PowerPoint slide that I'm sure we'll go through again during the full meeting, but we've got some extra time here, Jessica, if you want to walk us through, and maybe we can start to sort through some of the questions and comments for counselors who are here early that we can get to work.
Sure, I'd be happy to do that. We are having some technical difficulties, so I think Focus Springfield is sharing the PowerPoint from their screen, so I hope everyone can see it.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. Okay,
And
so
by
the tax...
And by the way, you only have till 5, because at 5 I do have to stop and then go to the next meeting, but go ahead.
Okay, thank you. The city budget must be adopted before July 1st and sets the expenditures for the fiscal year. The FY26 budget was adopted on May 29th, 2025. The final levy is established once the Department of Revenue, DOR, approves our values and new growth. The City Council must then determine the percentage of the tax levy to be paid by each class, and that's residential and CIP, also known as commercial, industrial, and personal property. Review and final certification of the selected factor by the DOR is required in order to timely generate Q3 tax bills. Next slide, please. The role of the Board of Assessors. So our role is to determine the full and fair cash value of all real estate and personal property. Full and fair cash value is the price on which a willing seller and willing buyer will agree if both are fully informed and under no compulsion. The City of Springfield has approximately 45,979 taxable parcels and personal property accounts that are annually updated to reflect their full and fair cash value. Next slide, please. The role of the Department of Revenue is to certify that assessed values meet the full and fair cash value standard in compliance with Proposition 2.5. The DOR certification of assessed values occurs once every 5 years, and Springfield's last certification was done in fiscal 23. Our next will be in fiscal 28. The DOR requires that all municipalities update their values every year to reflect full and fair cash value, and these are called interim year adjustments. These are done between certification years. Assessors must submit documentation, including all real estate sales and values, to the Department of Revenue to ensure compliance with full and fair cash value. Next slide, please. So these are some key assessment dates. Our fiscal year 2026 runs from July 1st of 2025 through June 30th of 2026. Our valuation date is as of January 1st of 2025, and our physical status date is June 30th of 2025. Next slide, please. So Proposition 2.5 limits how much a city or town can raise in property taxes each year. And there's two key limits to this: the levy ceiling, which is the total property tax levy, and it cannot exceed 2.5% of the community's full and fair cash value. And the levy limit, that's the amount to be raised from property taxes and can only increase by up to 2.5% per year plus new growth. And new growth, we'll get into that after. It's taxes from new construction, additions, or property improvement. And then the levy is the revenue raised to partially fund the city's budget. New growth is an annual increase in the levy limit that reflects increases in the tax base since the prior year. Recognition that new development typically requires additional costs to the city. For example, new houses require additional services, including school enrollment, police service, fire service, and trash pickup. New growth also includes any items taxed for the first time, including new additions to a house or a new business personal property. New growth does not include any valuation increases based on the full and fair cash market adjustments. This shows the breakdown of new growth for fiscal 26. We had just over $7.3 million in new growth. 56% from personal property, 18% from residential, and 26% from commercial industrial. Next slide, please. These were some key drivers for new growth in fiscal 26. Under residential, we had some new construction of single family homes, 42 of them. We had 40 new condo units built last year. And then personal property, 57% of personal property growth attributed to utilities. So that's like meters, underground conduit, poles, towers, and other equipment. And then for commercial development, there was a new Tesla dealership that was built, Springfield Crossing on Boston Road, and a new charter school at 262 Liberty Street. This just shows the total taxable value. So as you can see, for fiscal 26, we had a overall 7.81% value change. Next slide, please. For 2026, our average single family value is $275,200. Next slide, please. An overview of our residential valuation. So this year we saw a 7.6% increase in single family homes. We saw a 5.5% increase in condo units, 11.1% increase in 2-family units, and a 12.4% increase in 3 families. This shows the CIP shift since 2014. So from about 2016 until last year, you can see an increase in the CIP shift. And at last year, 2025, we were at max shift of 1.75. This slide shows the effects of shifting the levy for fiscal 25. So on the left pie chart, you can see how the total taxable value is broken down. 77% residential and 23% commercial industrial personal property. And it's a reflection of how the property is distributed. On the right side, you will notice that due to the shift, residential properties are responsible for paying 60% of the total levy, and CIP properties paid for 40% of that total levy. These are the personal exemptions that we offer here in the city. We have Clause 41C, which is for people over age 65 who meet certain asset and income restrictions. And then in fiscal 23, we lowered the age from 70 to 65 and increased the amount from 500 to 1,000. We have the 17D, which is for people who are age 70 or older, or a surviving spouse. There are asset restrictions on that of $40,000, and that exemption amount is $175. We have Clause 37, which is an exemption for a homeowner who is blind. They must provide an annual certificate, and that exemption amount is $437.50. We have exemptions for veterans with at least a 10% disability rating, and those exemption amounts differ. They're anywhere between $800 and a full exemption. For fiscal 26, the HEROES Act doubled the exemption amount for veterans. And then there's a circuit breaker tax credit, and it's a tax credit through the Department of Revenue. The homeowner must be 65 by December 31st of the tax year. And for the year 2025, the maximum tax credit amount is $2,820. This shows the personal exemptions that were granted in fiscal year 25. So in total, we had 1,100 exemptions, totaling about $951,000, and the state reimbursed us a little over $755,000. So on this chart, you will see the type, the statutory clause, the fiscal 2025 exemption amount, the reimbursement amount, and the fiscal 26 exemption amount. And I just want to point out that the veteran exemption amounts between fiscal 25 and 26 doubled due to the HERO Act, but the amount that we are being reimbursed from the state did not change. The state reimbursements are also subject to annual appropriation. This is some proposed targeted tax relief that we have as of fiscal 26. So this creates a donation fund to assist someone who is low income, and the idea is to help people who just miss the 41C, and it creates a taxation aid committee to define elderly, disabled, and low income. And the eligibility and amount of assistance will be determined by the Taxation Aid Committee. We do have a home rule petition, and the home rule petition will allow the city to put money into that fund. So the mayor already committed $1 million, and that petition is currently in the third reading. The next slide is the penny rate sheet with the $4 million. So this is what we originally came out with. We were showing an average tax increase of $288 for the average single family home. And then the mayor agreed on another $3 million in free cash. If you want to go to the next slide. Now we're looking at a $244 increase to the average single family home.
Thank you, Jessica. That was a terrific job. And with a few minutes to spare here before our next meeting, with our colleagues' indulgence, when we go into the regular meeting, I don't get to ask any questions unless I come down. So I just have a couple of questions in the last 3 minutes we've got, if that's okay with my colleagues. Jessica, on the new growth slide, where you have this really great pie chart and it breaks down new growth, 18% resi, 26% commercial, and 56% personal property. The slide after, I think, really does a good job at summarizing what's driving that, particularly for residential and commercial. But could you speak to why personal property is making up more than half of the new growth in this particular year? I mean, what's happening in our personal property space or telecom space that's driving that?
Sure. So this is for like Eversource, and these are all things that they bring in every year that we don't necessarily see. Every year, utilities account for a majority of our new growth, and we're just seeing an increase in that every year. So they're updating outdated infrastructure and things like that. And so because of that, we're seeing a lot of new growth.
So it's not a new trend to see personal property be the largest piece of our new growth because the city's already, you might say, at capacity or close to it for residential development and commercial development.
Yeah, it's something that we have seen, I would say, consistently over the last 6 years or so.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Then the other question that I had, not so much a question, it's just on slide 17 that you highlighted, the HEROES Act. I think it's obviously terrific, and I know Councilor Walsh has been a big advocate for a lot of this, for doubling the veterans exemptions that are offered. But I really appreciate you highlighting the fact that the state has required the city to pick up 100% of the bill for this increase. So it's great to have, the state's support in enabling these additional exemptions and giving us these home rule options. But it would be better if they kicked in some money too. So the city's funding 100% of that doubling of the veterans exemptions, and I appreciated you highlighting that point, and I thought it was worth readdressing the public to recognize that that's a burden that's being willingly but exclusively borne by the city of Springfield taxpayers and not by the Commonwealth.
But that wasn't the intent of the legislation. The legislation was that it was funded by the state.
Well, they're supposed to give us the MGM money too, but that's changed. So that will conclude our public hearing. Those councilors who are participating remotely and the public, I'd ask you to switch to the full meeting link, and we will see you on there in a couple of minutes. Meeting adjourned.